1 1. Oh, this is 1.
ના વાંધો નથી એક બેમાંથી બે ચાલે છે એક સેકન્ડ
એક બંધ કરશે તો
ના બે ચાલે છે એક between છે
બે ચાલશે તો ઇકો આવશે.
અત્યાર સુધી એમ જ રોજ
ઓકે.
નથી આવતો.
થોડું તમે રિપીટ કરી શકો
શેનું?
કેમ કે પહેલાં તો એ વોઇસ નથી
ઓકે
યુટ્યુબ
ઓકે ઓકે
સોરી
right. Uh, what we are going to study today is something called mind, and man does not have one mind. We can say he has four functions which together make up mind, or he has four minds, we can say, right? These functions are the function of thinking, the function of feeling, sensing and moving. Now, the soul has three basic qualities: consciousness, attention and will. And consciousness is the degree of progress of the soul, right? What level of consciousness has the soul achieved? And as the soul goes into higher and higher states of consciousness, one day its consciousness is equal to that of the spirit or the Atma, and it is able to re-emerge into the Atma, go back into the Atma. So, the whole journey is nothing but to rise in consciousness, to extract consciousness. Now, to extract consciousness from life, the soul is given something called attention and will, right? Consciousness, attention and will. These are three possessions of the soul, three attributes of the soul. The soul operates through mind. It cannot operate on its own. It has to operate through mind. And as we see, mind is thinking mind, feeling mind, sensing mind and moving mind. So, when it operates through mind, these are the four functions in mind. And the soul wants to rise in consciousness, so its main aim of taking a human form, of coming into the what you call express world, into the manifest world, it is in some unmanifest state. To come into the manifest state is to gather consciousness, right? To gather consciousness. Now, for gathering consciousness, it is given these four functions. And consciousness is mixed with function, right? Just as when we go to get gold, gold is mixed with sand and we have to separate sand from gold. Similarly, in life, we have to separate consciousness from function, right? So, I am thinking, but am I thinking with consciousness? Right? Then I am separating consciousness from the function of thinking. But if I am thinking and I am identified with the thinking, there is no self-consciousness, then I am in a state of sleep, I am in a state of dream, right? And I am not awakened from the process of thinking. Similarly with the process of feeling, sensing and moving, right? In each of these processes, each of these functions which are given to man, he uses these functions to separate consciousness and to rise in consciousness. For that he is given something called attention. Now, when a child is born, till about 5 years, all the experiences from outside, that is, all the impressions which come from outside, go to the soul. Even though we name the child, and the child has a feeling of I which comes with the name, but before there was the name, there was a feeling of I which was not the name. Right? Now, so the child, around 5 years, he builds something called the ego, the false I, that takes over the, what do you call, place of the soul. The soul goes to sleep, and for the rest of the life, all the, what do you call, impressions in life, they go to the ego, they don't go to the soul. These functions, these 4 functions which are supposed to be used by the soul to rise in consciousness, are kidnapped by the ego, and the ego uses it to fulfill its own desires, its own hungers, the hungers of the senses, to look for comfort, etc. So it does that by taking the 2 fundamental faculties of the soul. One is attention and one is will, right? What is will? The power to control attention is will, right? What is attention? The soul experiences life through attention. It sends attention out through the eyes, through the 5 senses, and attention brings back the impressions of life, and the soul enjoys those impressions of life, right? But as we have seen, after 5 years, the soul does not grow. After 5 years, the ego grows, and when we die, really nothing has happened. Everything has gone to the ego. So the soul has to come back again to start its journey all over again, right? Now, each of these centers, right, the thinking center, the feeling center, the sensing and the moving, right, we will divide them into different parts. But first we'll just try to make a, what do you call, architectural, what do you call, diagram of the body-brain system. That is a 3-storied machine. So we have 3 stories. Man is a, what you call, building with 3 stories. Right. The first story is the intellectual, thinking. The second is the emotional, feeling. And the third is the sensing, moving. And in the third story, there is one more function which we call as sex, but which we are not going to talk about in this series, right? So there is sensing, moving, and also sex, right? Now, these are the, what you call, 4 functions which man has. And we will call these as 4 separate centers, 4 separate centers. And it is these centers which have the power to control attention. When I'm thinking, my attention is, what you call, seduced by a thought or is attracted to a thought. When I'm feeling, my attention is attracted to a feeling or an emotion. Similarly, a sensation, it takes away my attention. Similar with moving. Now, Have we previously talked of the 4 states of consciousness? Have we previously talked? No. So we'll just cover them a little and then, right, okay. So there are 4 states of consciousness possible to man. The lowest state is what we call as sleep or nidra. All the dreams we have in the night come into nidra, are in nidra. Right. The second state is swapna, or the dream state. We will call it the state of psychological sleep. Now, what are the characteristics of these states, these first 2 states? In the first state, there is zero attention. There is zero attention. Now try to relate this to things in life, that sometimes I am reading a book, right, and I go to the next page and I suddenly realize I've read the previous page but I've not, what you call, grasped anything. So I go back to the previous page. What has happened? What has happened? I've been reading it with zero attention, zero attention. When I'm in a daydream or something, there is zero attention. I'm just drifting, right? Supposing I'm scanning through a magazine, right, like this, and I'm just going through like this. Really nothing is registering inside it. I'm reading with zero attention. But supposing I come to one page and suddenly there is something, what do you call that, says that you take 5 drops of this every day, you'll be very healthy for the rest of your life. So from zero attention I go to which attention? Attracted attention. So the second state, the dream state, is where my attention is always attracted by something. Right. And we live in this state throughout our lives. We are born and we die in this state, and we never rise higher than this state. Right? Now, this is a state in which man loves to live. He does not want to get out of this state, right? Because to get out of this state, he has to use will to control attention. And that requires effort, that requires conscious effort. And he's not willing to put in that conscious effort, right? Now, if you'll see throughout our life, attention is always attracted by some event, some happening or something. So we are always living in a state of seduced attention. Attention is attracted in something. Similarly, when we are reading a detective novel or seeing a, what do you call, detective serial on TV, we don't have to hold attention in the, what do you call, serial. It is automatically attracted by the serial. It holds our interest. It holds our interest. Now, the third state of consciousness is called self-consciousness. self-consciousness, right? And we are going to divide this state into 7 different parts. There are 7 levels in this state of self-consciousness. Now, what is the difference between self-consciousness and the dream state? What is the difference between self-consciousness and the dream state?
Here you have to make effort to direct your attention.
Okay. Now, between the state of self-consciousness and the state of dream is what we call the state of directed attention. It is not self-consciousness, but it is a state of directed attention which we use when we are studying for an exam, right? So I've read this page, come to the second page, but I've forgotten this page. So now I read this page with directed attention, right? So I grasp something. So directed attention is very near the state of self-consciousness, but it is not self-consciousness. It is not self-consciousness. But it is also not just the dream state. We are sort of in between the dream state and the what do you call self-consciousness state. What is the state of self-consciousness?
So then here you have to divide your attention where you have some attention on the self and some attention on what's going on.
Here we divide our attention. Here we divide our attention. So supposing I'm in this state, right? And what do you call, I brake my car, right, in traffic. So all my attention has gone into the, what do you call, act of braking the car, the whole event of braking the car, right? But in self-consciousness, there will be a little division of attention, a little attention on self, that I braking the car. There will be 2 feelings, not just of braking the car, there will be a feeling of I braking the car. Can you understand what I'm trying to say? Now supposing I'm having a cup of tea, so I'm enjoying the cup of tea, so my total attention is in the tea, in the sensation of the tea, etc. But if I'm climbing the what you call stairs of self-consciousness, a little bit of attention will be on feeling of I drinking tea, the feeling of I drinking tea. So this will slowly, as we practice this, it will enter every act of life. So whether we are thinking, whether we are feeling, whether we are sensing or moving, right? So it could be feeling that my son comes in front of me, so I have a feeling for my son. So there is attention on the son, but there is also attention on I, the father, right? I, right? What do you call, playing the role of father, looking at my son. You know? So in what do you call self-consciousness, attention gets divided, and the whole what you call layer, 7 layers of self-consciousness, rising the ladder of self-consciousness, is nothing but making an effort towards deeper and deeper feelings of I doing this, I doing this. Now, what is the technique to divide attention? What is the technique to divide attention?
You mean like 3SRB?
3-step rhythmic breathing. What is most important for us, that we must be practicing 3-step rhythmic breathing at least couple of hours a day, at least couple of hours a day, because in 3-step rhythmic breathing there is an automatic division of attention between the music and breathing. The dividing attention becomes spontaneous. Dividing attention becomes spontaneous, and we are able to move into the what you call ladder of self-consciousness in a more easy and effortless way. That is why 3-step rhythmic breathing is basically the most important thing we can do in our lives, right? It is more important than doing anything else in life. We must practice 3-step rhythmic breathing, right? So that is the most important. Now there's the fourth state of consciousness. Yeah. It's called as objective consciousness or turiya. Turiya means the fourth. Now when God made the world, right, and He made everything what we see in life, He had a problem, right? And that problem was that in God everything is one. In that wholeness everything is one, right? So in that wholeness He and I are one, right? And if He and I are one, and if He owes me money, I can't ask Him for money, because how can I ask Him for money? He and I are one, right? So the game of life would not happen if everything was a part of that oneness, right? Everything is a part of that oneness, right? So God created something called avidya. Avidya means ignorance, right? Avidya means lack of consciousness. That is, even though man is a god, he covered that god with a veil of avidya, right? So that he does not see that everything is one. He thinks he and I are separate, and you and I are separate, and my money is my money, your money is your money, right? And it was this separateness was needed for the game of life. Otherwise, the game could not happen. The game of life could not happen, right? So, when we start climbing these steps of self-consciousness, we slowly, as we go on to the higher steps of consciousness, we'll get glimpses of where yourself and myself is still self only, right? Is still self only. And at that time, we'll move into the fourth state of consciousness, which is the universal consciousness or objective consciousness, where everything is one in that state. Even the world is one within us, and that is why Shankaracharya had to use the term Aham Brahmasmi, right? It is within me. I am that. I am that, right? But we are not worried about the fourth state of consciousness. That is not our aim also. Our aim is to rise in the third state of consciousness, right? Now, to rise in the third state of consciousness, there are two things. One, what pulls us back into the state of sleep or swapna, right? And the second, what practices lead us to a higher state of consciousness, right? So two things there over here. So in yoga we have two terms, abhyas and vairagya. So that which pulls me back down into the lower state of consciousness, I do vairagya of that, right? And that which is taking me into a higher state of consciousness, which allows me to climb the states, what do you call, steps of consciousness, that I do abhyas of that, I do practice of that, right? So in yoga, we say we have two terms, abhyas and vairagya. Well, that which takes me lower, I drop it, and that which takes me higher, right, I do practice that. Now, later on when we go into these two words, abhyas and vairagya, we will understand that as we rise higher in consciousness, supposing we have risen from one step and we've gone to another step, right? And the first step was so attractive. Maybe we could read people's thoughts or we could understand people better, and we don't want to leave that step. So there again, abhyas and vairagya means going to the higher step is abhyas, and letting go of the lower step which was previously abhyas for us as vairagya. Can you get what I'm trying to say? So the definition will change as we progress in yoga. Now, when we come to self-consciousness, we come to something which is called the feeling of I. The feeling of I.
So in normal state, is there, it keeps changing, right?
Pardon?
The state from sleep to dream to directed and self-conscious, it fluctuates.
It fluctuates.
Okay.
Within the state of swapna, there are many levels,
Okay.
right? Below the state of swapna, in the state of sleep, right? There are also many levels which are very, very powerful levels, right? Okay, so, but those are levels where you uh, you come face to face with those powers through black magic or something like that, right?
Okay.
So those are called the seven talas in our shastra, right? Patal, Talatal, Sutal. Can you get it? Atal, right? So those talas are connected with the very powerful parts of these four functions, and also they are connected with the sex function, and we can go into a deeper state of sleep and we can use those powers. Yeah, but that is all comes in black magic. So if you see in the Red Indians or the old tribes and all, they would play the drums and have the music and dance, and they would go into what is called a trance, into these lower levels, and then they would see what the future is, what is this thing, you know. So that is shamanism, they call that shamanism, right? To go into the lower levels. But we are not interested in that. We want to climb the steps of self-consciousness.
Okay.
Anything else you know?
No, I was just wondering, like even on a daily basis, we go from sleep to attracted attention, then directed.
Can you tell me how much time in the day do we spend in directed attention?
Maybe few minutes, especially if you're
Nothing really.
okay.
Really nothing. We just go about everything with ordinary attention, right? And because in directed attention we have to make an effort to study something, put our attention into it, and even when we are studying, we want to fall down back into attracted attention. We don't have that will to hold attention for longer periods of time. Supposing I keep on talking, after some time you won't be able to hold your attention. You'll want to fall back into a lower state of attention, right? And then higher than that is divided attention. Divided. But we don't want to make the effort to divide attention. Like Gurdjieff and Ospinski say, we want to practice three-step rhythmic breathing so divided attention becomes spontaneous for us. Can you get it, what I'm trying to say? So here we are a little different from their techniques. So as we practice three-step rhythmic breathing, automatically we start living in a state of divided attention. Then rising in self-consciousness becomes much easier. Then that conscious effort which they are talking about, we don't have to do that conscious effort. Yeah, please. I've forgotten your name. Huh?
Snehal.
Snehal, right. And it's your wife?
Yes.
Yeah.
Urvi.
What's your name?
Urvi.
Purvi. Achha.
Urvi.
Urvi. We met here only?
Yes.
We met here, okay.
So, I mean, how do you, so what state are we in now? I mean, in a day-to-day life, right?
We are in the state of swapna.
Swapna.
Attention is always attracted to something or repulsed from something.
Okay. So my day-to-day living, getting up, going to work is all dream.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now,
And-
if you can just change that day-to-day living, right? That is, you don't make any change in your day-to-day living, but you try to feel I doing this. Can you understand?
Okay.
So supposing you're having a bath, then having a bath is an event. So you just say taking a bath, right? So there's a feeling of I taking a bath. So what has happened? You've divided your attention from only taking a bath to I taking the bath, and I is the self. I is the self. So from this state you're moving into a higher state of self-consciousness.
So it is I am doing something, or it is I want to do something, right? So, for
Yeah,
example,
I can't understand.
yeah. So it is when you say, so you're separating the I from the action. Is that what it is?
There's a feeling of I separate from the action, right? You're not separating the I. The I can never is always separate. The I is always separate, but the feeling of I gets mixed with the feeling of the action. You understand?
Yeah. So you're, I mean, okay. So you're just making yourself aware that I'm doing this.
So there is a feeling of I doing this. First there was a feeling of only doing this. Now there is a feeling of I doing this. Can you get what I'm trying to say? Right? So you have separated the feeling of I from the feeling of doing this. Right? Till now, say you get angry. Say you get angry. So there is anger, right? And there is the feeling I am
Angry.
angry. So what is the feeling of I?
Anger.
Anger, right? I can never be anger. But the I lost its own feeling and it took on the feeling of anger. Can you understand? Now if you say, okay, there is a feeling of anger, but there is also a feeling of I getting caught in that anger. Can I separate that feeling of I from the feeling of anger? Not getting it.
So it is same as getting, so it is same as realizing that you got triggered.
You got?
Triggered, right? So you realize that I'm angry. So
If you want to ask in Gujarati, no problem.
no, it's okay.
Right.
No, okay. Okay, so I am angry, right? So now say I am angry, but you realize that I am angry.
Now that is the first step.
Right.
You realize I am
Angry.
angry. Then you understand that I and anger are two separate things. But I am not getting a feeling of I am only getting a feeling of
Anger.
anger. Can I separate, give the feeling of I back to my I? Can I give that feeling of I back to my, just now I am feeling I through anger. Can you understand?
Yes.
Right? But I don't want to feel I through anger. I want to feel I through its original feeling of I. You are, just now somebody, again I got your name, what is it?
Snehal.
Huh?
Snehal.
Snehal, right? So I say Snehal. Where are you getting your feeling of I from? From the name. Can you get it? You're getting your feeling of I from the name, right? But what is the feeling of I which is real, not a part of name? Then we've got to climb this ladder. Can you understand? Then I have my original feeling of I back to me, right? But today I don't have any original feeling of I. I have to get my feeling of I from either thinking, feeling, sensing or moving. Can you understand what I'm trying to say? Right? So, where is my feeling of I coming from? Right? And we want to go back to that original feeling of I which took a name. Right? Just now it became the name. Right? But for practical purposes in the drama of life, it took a name. Can you understand? You opened your laptop and you went into, and you created your avatar over there. And in your avatar, you gave him a name. Similarly, this avatar came in the drama of life, right? And it was given a name. But what was its original feeling? What is the feeling of before the name? And we have to separate that, return to the source, go back to that original feeling of I. Am I getting clear? I don't know. Huh? Right. Okay. Okay. So shall we rub this out now? So whenever I am trying to hold whatever feeling of I, either sensation of the body, sensation of breathing, right? I use something to hold a feeling of I. Then I'm trying to move from this dream state to the state of self-consciousness, self-consciousness. Yeah.
So I is identified usually.
Identification means I has given its feeling to something else,
Something else.
right? But if I is consciousness, nothing happens to I, only the feeling of I. It is like there is water and there's a glass of water, right? So you pour the water in the glass. The water takes the shape of the glass. Water does not become the glass. Am I coming
Yeah.
across in this? Okay, right? Similarly, I am in love. Then the I, the feeling of I takes the shape of love. So the real feeling of I has now become the feeling of love. I can never become love. Can you understand what I'm saying? Right? I am irritated. Right? So the feeling of I has been taken by irritation. It has been seduced, kidnapped by irritation. But the I can never become irritation. Okay. Now we are going to approach this in a different way. What is my feeling of I? What is my feeling of I? So my feeling of I has three parts. Has three parts. This is very, very important, very important. What is my feeling of I? Now it has three parts. One is the real part. One is the acquired part. And one is the imaginary part. So, real part we maybe in our life, if we are lucky, we'll experience once or twice, I don't know. So, we'll just put that on the side. Right? Now, I have a son, right? So, there is a feeling of I as a father. Which will that come in? The acquired part. Can you understand? Right? But now there's a feeling of I, not just as a father, but I'm a very good father. Where does that come from? The imaginary part. Right? Again, say I have some money. So there's a feeling of I that I have some money. Right? Which will that be? Acquired part. Right? But I have so much money. Imaginary part. Imaginary part. I have a job. Acquired part. Right? But I control so many people through this job. Imaginary part. Right? I compare it with you. I am what you call CEO and you are DEO or whatever. Yeah? Right? Can you see that it becomes the imaginary part? Right? I become president of the club. Say I'm a member of Rotary Club, right? And I become Rotary clubs. Everybody gets a chance to be president in rotation, right? So it's a good place. Everybody can't be president of the country, but everybody can be president of the Rotary Club, right? So is it the acquired part or the imaginary part? It's the imaginary part. Imaginary part. So when I use the word I, what am I talking about? What am I talking about? Supposing tomorrow, not tomorrow, say today, I suddenly get a lot of money, right? Suddenly I get a lot of money. Then tomorrow when I'm using the word I, just the feeling of I, we are not talking about the intellectual part of it, just the feeling of I. Do I include that money in my feeling of I? Can you understand? Right? I become president of the club. When I say I to her, yesterday I said I to her, but today I become president of the club. When I say I to her, have I included that feeling, president of the club, in my feeling of I? Right? So, what is my feeling of I? Right? And we have to take that feeling of I from the imaginary to the acquired to the real. Right? Now, people will come, and spirituality is the best place for imaginary feeling of I. Right? Right. So they'll say, I have studied the Shastras. Many people, they've got a big ego, we studied the Shastras. Right? I know the Shastras. Right? But is that I real or acquired or imaginary? Right? When he's saying that I, it is just his imagination that he knows everything, and a person who knows everything knows nothing. Right? Can you understand what I'm trying to say? Right? So we have this spiritual meritoriousness that I am doing meditation, I am doing puja, I am doing this, I am, right? The spiritual meritoriousness, and all that is part of the imaginary I. So the whole journey is to move from the imaginary I to the acquired I to real I. Now, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? Yeah.
So the imaginary I that you're referring to is basically ego, right? Is that, or you could associate with that, or no?
I'm giving you the main parts of the ego.
Okay,
The main parts of the ego.
okay.
Now,
Because acquired doesn't seem to, right? Acquired is just what you're doing, right? You're not attaching any, like for instance, good father, or you're just not boosting your own ego, right? Acquired is whatever you're doing is there, and you just did it without any associations per se, or
yeah.
right? Is that what you're saying? Okay, okay, thanks.
But you see, you have to see it the other way,
Okay,
not just subjective.
objectively,
You're not getting it.
no.
Supposing you're dealing with your children
Okay,
and you're saying that only I want to remain in the acquired side.
okay.
I won't have any thoughts that I'm a good mother or a bad mother or whatever. Can you understand?
Yeah,
Just the role or function of being
Mother.
a mother.
yeah,
But supposing I come,
yeah.
right? And I say, this is not the way to deal with your children, and you react, then where are you?
Going back to the imaginary.
Can you get what I'm trying to say?
Yes, yes.
So it is not just a subjective feeling. You
Yeah.
see, in relationship, am I holding that feeling or not?
Yeah.
Okay, you get it? But if I defend myself, then I'm always defending the false.
Right, right.
Always defending the false.
Okay. I see. Okay.
Get it? Get it?
Hanji. Thanks.
Or supposing I go to somebody's house,
Ji.
right, and I see that somebody is not, what do you call, treating his or her children, another mother's, treating her children the way you think is right or wrong, whatever.
Right.
Can you get it?
Yeah, yeah.
So
Associating
now
judgment.
you want to tell that person. How are you going to tell that person?
I have no. That'll be
So you
tough.
would like to tell that person with as less imaginary I as possible. But if you tell that this is not the way to teach children, this is the way, you're saying that you don't know, but I
No.
know. Can you understand?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. And this is one of the oldest, what do you call, attitudes in man, that I am better than you.
Right.
You get it?
Yeah.
So, all you're saying is that my ego is better than your ego. But I don't want to bring in the word ego because I want to go into the components of the ego.
I see. Okay.
So I don't want to bring in the word ego. That is why I'm thinking. But what is my feeling of I? So then you will have to tell him in a more matter-of-fact way, you know, in a roundabout way. If you do this, doesn't your son feel hurt? Right? Do you think it's right to hurt them? Say it. Wouldn't it be better to tell them in a way without hurting them? Can you see?
Yeah, yeah.
Then you're not bringing in I know better.
Yeah.
You know, you're trying to open the situation. Still, I know better is there, but at a way, you know, not that expressed as it is expressed.
I see. Okay.
So acquired I by itself is not a problem. It's just a tool, right?
It's a tool to
It's
live
a
life.
tool to live the
You have to live life.
Okay.
But it is the imaginary I,
Imaginary I is the problem.
right? So, see, if you sense people's auras, right? So you go into an office where there's somebody who's got a lot of power. So you sense he's living in his imagination only. Can you understand? Right? So there's a what do you call imaginary feeling of I. Now, whenever we defend ourselves, justify our actions, we are always defending the imaginary part. Always defending the imaginary part. Right? Okay. So, this feeling of I, of course, Gurdjieff says is composed of many I's, but I'm not going into that this time, right? But the I's live in what is called, the buildings called the centers, the four functions, right? And we want to study the four functions this time, right?
There's a question online
Yeah.
on I by Cosmish regarding I. So, cold is experienced on the skin,
Yeah.
but I am not cold. He's just trying to confirm his understanding regarding I. He's saying cold is experienced on the skin, but I am not cold. Is this close enough?
That is one way of saying it. I would rather put it this way. There is a feeling of I which is separate from the feeling of cold. He can say it this way, but you know, it can become a form of, you know, I am not cold, I am not this, I am not that. Then it becomes more intellectual. Can you get what I'm trying to say? So I would rather bring it down to the level of sensitivity. The feeling of I is separate from the feeling of cold. Separate. And I can feel my feeling of I getting attached to the feeling of cold. Right? But these are not the examples we would like to use. She insulted me, right? And I can see my eye, what do you call, getting attracted to go into anger and become anger. Can you see? I would like examples like this. Hot and cold are just body sensations. Right? Sorry.
So, in the whole example of she's not treating her kids fine, in my mind, according to my perception, she's not doing well. But I'm like, I don't care, she's not my kid. Where do I fall? The imaginary eye?
No. See, I'll tell you. Just one thing. Right? Again, your name is? Urvi. Urvi, yeah. Okay. We rise in consciousness and we rise in something else also, which goes together with consciousness.
Emotional state, sensitivity.
Love and Understanding.
Understanding will come.
Love.
Sensitivity. Sensitivity. Right? Now, I say something to you and you give it back to me is not sensitivity, it is sensitiveness. Right? So, as long as in life we are always what you call attracted to excitement, there's a new movie in town or a new show in town, I want to buy a new car, I want to buy a new house. Can you get it? Right? So as long as in life we are only attracted to what do you call excitement, something new all the time, it is always sensitiveness. Sensitiveness. Right? But I do the same practices every day, but every day there is a new level of sensitivity. Can you understand? Then they are not the same practices which I did yesterday. You get it? Every day it is new. Why is it new? Because I am going deeper and deeper into the sensitivity of the practices. Supposing you are playing music, right? You played the same what you call raga yesterday and you played the same raga today. But as you're dissolving into the sensitivity of the raga, it doesn't matter if you have played it 100 times or not. At that moment, it is the sensitivity is new of the raga. You understand what I'm trying to say, right? It is not a repetition, even though you're repeating every day. Okay, right? Husband and wife. He has to see the same wife every day, right? So he can't say that I fell in love with a 20-year-old girl, now she's no longer 20. What do I do? Huh? Right? He can't say that, right? So then he's looking for excitement. But if he sees the same wife every day and every day the sensitivity is new, then it is sensitivity. You understand? So now you are seeing her treating her children. So what will not be there? What will not be there? I don't care. Of course you care. Of course you care because your sensitivity is now, as it is increasing with consciousness and sensitivity is increasing, you're feeling the pain of the children, you're feeling the, what do you call, how something is going wrong. Can you understand what I don't know if I'm coming across it. Yeah. So I don't care is that I'm losing my sensitivity, I'm becoming dead. Spirituality is not a dead path. You're becoming more and more alive in spirituality, right? So you care. Now you want to tell her or him or whoever you want to tell, right? How are you going to tell without bringing I am better, I know, without hurting that other person, right? If I say you don't know how to look after your what kind of, then I'm hurting the other person. Okay? Then that will come out of I don't care, right? So this, as we rise in consciousness, right, we rise in sensitivity also because we are progressing to a state where everything is one, right? And when we are progressing to that state where everything is one, then her suffering is my suffering. You understand what I'm trying to say?
One other question. Most of the examples you've given are on the positive side. I'm a good mother, a good father, have lots of money, but the imaginary I could take a negative side as well, correct?
Yeah.
What repercussions does that have?
What?
What consequences would that have? Like when a person, there are some people who are like, I'm not good enough. There's a pity component or there's a depression component or something there. But that also is imaginary. So how, I feel like sometimes we focus, okay, our ego is so much and, we need to bring it down. But there are some people who you interact with where they need to kind of come on the other side.
Can we? Okay. So what are we interested in? What is pulling us back to the state of sleep? Swapna. Am I right? Okay. So, in the end, right, everything is related to I. Now, self-pity is what? How is it related to I?
I am identified with the feeling of
Self-pity.
it's not fair.
Yeah,
or
but
self-pity. Yeah.
what am I going through?
Guilt.
No, guilt will lead to self-pity. That is one of the things which lead to self-pity. But that is not everything that self-pity is about. Can you understand what I'm trying to say? Right? So, what is the basic feeling in self-pity?
That life is not fair to me.
I am not getting my due. I am not getting my due, or life owes me something, right? I did so much for you, but when I fell down with a fever, you never bothered to call me. So, I mean, it's a feeling of self-pity. Can you get what I'm trying to say, right? And I'm identified with that feeling of self-pity, so I've fallen into a lower state of consciousness, right? Actually, self-pity is the worst state to be in, because it has very long and deep repercussions, self-pity, right? Before self-pity, there is guilt. But guilt is a very little difficult thing, because we cannot study guilt so easily. We have to have a larger perspective to study guilt. Now, so what is ego? We have an imaginary I, imaginary feeling of I, right? And what happens with that imaginary feeling of I? Supposing you're a government officer and you have a lot of power in your hands, right? If somebody wants to make a building, you put a cross there, poor guy can't build on his land, right? So you have a lot of power in your hands, right? So you have this big ego, what a powerful person I am, right? Now, what has happened? That is an imaginary part of your I. Imaginary I. Now, what happens? Why are you feeling so powerful? Why are you feeling so powerful?
Because I've made a picture of myself that I'm
Right,
so
yeah.
powerful.
Right?
And I'm so good.
No, and
I'm very happy.
I've fallen in love with that
That
picture.
picture.
I have fallen in love with that picture. This falling in love with my own picture is called as self-love or ego. Can you get what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
Where I fall in love with my own picture is self-love and ego. See, two people meet, right? Are two people meeting or two egos meeting?
Two egos.
Two egos. They say, I am in love with you and you are in love with me, right? But if she does something which upsets to me, then I'm not in love at that time. That time I'm irritated with her. Can you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Right? So, it is not love. It is still self-love. Right?
Yeah.
It's still self-love. This self-love is ego. Now, that manifests in many forms. The ego manifests in many forms. Now, this self-love or ego cannot be seen. It cannot be seen. You understand? So in old terminology, not in new terminology, we'll take a new terminology. How do we see the ego? How do we observe the ego? Now we are coming to the crux of the matter, self-observation. Self-observation. How do we observe the ego?
Through the negativities that come out.
Yeah. So say in the old Shastras, what kind of negativities come out of the ego?
Like Kam, Krodh,
Right.
Matsya.
So there is nothing like ego, or there is an ego which cannot be seen, it is so subtle, right? But we study the ego through its manifestations, and those manifestations are Lobha, Kama, Krodha, Moha, Matsa and Mada. 6 manifestations. This was the old terminology. These 6 manifestations Gurdjieff made into what is called the false personality, which is based on imagination. And he gave a lot of them. So he would say justification, pride and vanity, jealousy and envy. Can you understand? Right? Self-pity, guilt, right? And what is the basis of everything? The basis of everything. All this, where the ego manifests itself, what is the basis of all that?
Like out of those weaknesses or?
Yeah, self-love is the basis,
Huh.
right? What leads self-love into manifestation?
Reaction.
Right, reaction. Right? So if you want to put it in one word, whenever we are reacting, we have fallen to a lower state of consciousness. Fallen to a lower state of consciousness. Now we go back to her example. She goes to somebody else's house and sees how they are treating their kids. And if she reacts over there, then it is coming from self-love. She's fallen, even though she may be saying the right things, she has fallen to a lower state of consciousness. Now is it clear? Right. Okay. Now we want to observe this fellow called the ego. We want to observe this guy. And one of the ways of observing is what Gurdjieff calls the doctrine of many eyes. The doctrine. We are not going to touch upon that. And the other way, which is also there, is to observe the working of your centers. Observe the working of your centers. The very fact that you are observing the centers, there is some self-consciousness apart from the functioning of the center, the functioning, and you are climbing the steps of self-consciousness. Now, is it clear? So we'll rub all this out. Okay. Now, we are going to go into the working of the centers and understanding the working of the centers and what those 6 manifestations which we call, we are going to divide them into so many parts and how we observe where we are, right? So the first, what is the first division of a center? The first division of a center.
Higher and lower?
The first division, the vertical division. Positive and negative. Positive and negative. So we take the emotional center, right? I am in anger, then in which part of the center am I?
Negative.
Negative center. I am in jealousy, I am in the negative part. Self-pity, I am in the negative part. right? Feeling of meritoriousness. Negative part. It's the negative part, right? So you have to be very careful. Supposing I help her, but I get a feeling I have helped her, then it is in the negative part of the emotional center.
So again, in that feeling of meritoriousness, there's a little bit of confusion because you do feel good when you help someone. It's only when, what's the difference between feeling good that I've helped someone versus the feeling of meritoriousness?
Okay. Okay. Now, in all these practices, we are going to first draw a line, right? And we are going to draw that line in our mind, right? And on this side of the mind are the thoughts which come to me, and on this side of the line is those thoughts which I think. Those thoughts which I think. Can you get it? Now, we have no problem with thoughts which come. So, a thought comes, I have helped you. Enjoy it. Right? But you were in so much difficulty and I helped you. And now I've started thinking the thought. I've started thinking the thought. She went to somebody's home and found that they are not treating the children properly. So the thought came, they're not. But if she starts thinking the thought, then she's fallen. Okay? This is not the way to treat children, and this should not be done, and they have no sense of what you call, etc., etc. You get what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
Right? So in the mind, and if we can do this, then we progress to a very high state of consciousness. Can you understand what I'm trying to say? This simple exercise that we draw a line in the mind, right? Thoughts are allowed to come. I'm not going to think any thought. Right? Now it's very difficult.
Yeah.
Very difficult. But as you practice this, you'll come to a point where no thought or feeling can disturb you. You're not free of them as yet, but you're in a state where you cannot be touched by them.
Does a state ever come where even the thought doesn't come, where you can?
We won't go into that
you
just
can.
now.
Okay.
We won't go into
Okay.
that just now.
Yeah.
We are more, what you call, concerned with the one who is observing the thought.
Okay.
Can you get what I'm trying to say? Right. For higher practices of yoga, some special practices, we may want to enter a state where there is no thought. But that is not what we want just now. Right? So when we go into the fourth state of consciousness, now there are techniques of going into the fourth state of consciousness without going through all the struggle of the third state of consciousness. Can you understand? Where you can directly go into the fourth state of consciousness. Those will involve such practices where there will be no thought, or can you get what I'm right? But when you don't go through the third state of consciousness, self-consciousness, you experience the fourth state of consciousness, but you come back to the second state of consciousness, and all that you've experienced there, it comes down to ego.
Sure.
Can you understand?
Yes.
So where you're sitting and you're letting the thoughts sort of go through the mind, but yet you're aware of it and you're not reacting to it. So what
Right.
stage is that?
That is exactly that stage.
Okay.
Right? But that is your sitting in meditation.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
But I call you a name. Say I call you a fool.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And you say, okay, this thought has come, I don't want to think this thought.
Yeah, you just let the thought go, but you don't react to it.
You don't react to it.
Yeah, you just let the thoughts go.
So
Okay.
rather than using the word reaction,
Yeah.
I won't think about it.
I see. Okay.
Otherwise, it'll be how can he call me a?
Fool.
Then I've thought the thought.
Then yes. Then
I've already thought the thought. Can you get what I'm
yeah,
trying to say?
yeah.
So I don't want to think the thought. Reaction is thinking the thought. You can allow as many thoughts to come. And that is a beautiful state, because early in the morning, if we are sitting, then we get very high thoughts. Sometimes they come from distant galaxies also.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, yeah.
So we don't want to stop that. We don't want to stop that.
I see.
As many thoughts want to come, they are allowed to come. I will not think any thought unless it is necessary.
I see.
Necessary.
Okay. Thanks.
So the first division is positive and negative, right? Now, because the basic structure of man is a 3-story building, we will apply the 3 stories to the centers. So each center we will divide into 3 horizontal parts and 1 vertical part. So if you find this what you call useful, then we'll continue. If you don't, then we can take any other topic also. I'm just open to anything over here. There's no right. So each center, so there's a thinking center, the feeling center, the sensing center, and the moving center. All will have 1 vertical division and 3 horizontal divisions. So each center will, what are the 3 horizontal divisions? What are the 3 horizontal divisions?
Intellectual, emotional,
And moving, so instinct moving, instinct moving. Okay. Now, these 4 functions, yeah, we are going to, what do you call, take them with the deck of cards. Take them with the deck of cards. So, we have the intellectual center. We will call the intellectual center as the, which suit? The diamonds. Diamonds. So, no, one second. Rub this out. Right. Okay, draw a circle. So this is the intellectual center, right? And the intellectual center is represented by the ace of diamonds. Ace of diamonds. Now the intellectual center has again 3 parts. 3 parts. Right? An intellectual part, an intellectual emotion part, and an intellectual moving sensing part. Now this becomes difficult to what you call. So we say that the intellectual part is the king of diamonds. The emotional part is the queen of diamonds. And the sensing moving part is the jack of diamonds. So we have 4 centers, 4 suits. Huh? The ace of diamonds intellectual, the ace of what do you call hearts, the very easy emotional, the ace of clubs as what do you call instinctive, and the ace of spades as what do you call moving. Okay, right? Right. Now, where do we start our study from?
The moving.
From the?
Moving.
Very good. From the moving. Why do we want to start our study from the moving?
It's the easiest to see.
Easiest to see because the hands and feet are easy to see, right? So we can observe my hand is going this way. So I've already started observing the moving center, right? Self-observation has already started. But to observe my thoughts is difficult. To observe my feelings is difficult, more difficult. But I can observe my movements, right? And so all self-observation begins with the moving center. Now, in another way, why is the moving center the most important of all 4?
Muscles? It's like
You hold muscular tension there.
Huh?
You hold muscular tension there.
Right? But what else? What else?
think you feel that you can control it? You feel that you have control over it?
No, it's not that. Is the moving center connected to the thinking and the emotional centers?
Yes.
Right now, supposing you're observing your moving center, so you say, I want to go for a walk. So you're observing your movements as you're walking. So there's a feeling of I separate from the feeling of moving. You're getting it? So now we are going on a walk and we are practicing self-consciousness at the same time. Right? Okay. What will you observe? What will you observe?
That there's a certain walk when you're relaxed and a certain walk when you become stressed out or when you become distracted or...
No. Supposing you're walking, you're right, absolutely right, but supposing you're walking and suddenly you change your pace of walking, you are walking a little slow, now you're walking a little fast. If you're observing properly, what will you see? You'll see that very moment your thinking also changed. Can you understand? So the moving center, you change from slow walking to fast walking. But the thinking also changed. Can you see the reverse also?
Yes.
How will you see the reverse? How will you see the reverse? Again, you've gone for a walk in the garden. Gone for a walk in the garden.
And if I get a phone call from my daughter,
Yeah,
then,
and she says something.
then something in my walk will change.
She says that you told me no, but I can't help it. I've taken ice cream from the fridge.
Exactly. Yeah.
Huh? Okay. So will your whole pace of movement change, or will you be walking in the same way? Can you understand? So the moving center is what do you call connected to the other centers, and the other centers are connected to the moving center, and that is why we start working with the moving center, right? Now one more reason for working with the moving center, which he said, right? You also said something about it. What is that?
The muscular
The muscles, the muscles, right? Now, what passes through muscular tissue?
electrical currents.
The nerves, the nerves, the electrical system of the body. The whole electrical system of the body passes through the nerves. So when there's a block in flow of blood, we say a blockage somewhere in the blood. And when there's a block in flow of electricity, we say paralysis. You understand what I'm trying to say, right? Now, every thought, every emotion, every sensation leaves an imprint on the muscles, leaves an imprint in the muscles. Can you see? Now, supposing these are the muscles of my shoulder, right? And say these muscles are connected with anger. These muscles are connected with anger. So every time I get angry, what is happening over here? They are getting tensed, right? They're getting tense, they're getting stiff, they're getting blocked. Okay, that is one part of it. What is the other and most important part of it? Because I can change that tenseness through what do you call little bit of exercise, or what do you call massage or something of that sort. What else is happening over there? What else is happening? Huh? The nerves which are passing through this area, the muscles of this area, the nerves which are passing, right? The electricity in the nerves gets blocked. The electricity in the nerves gets blocked, right? So the feeling of tension is not the feeling of the muscles, it is the feeling of the blockage in the electricity in the nerves. So instead of a flowing electricity, I have what is called static electricity. Static electricity. And that static electricity forms its own electromagnetic field. Can you understand? In another way, we can say that all the sanskars, all the memory patterns lie in the muscles. Lie in the muscles. So if we can work on the muscles, we are working on all the other centers at the same time. So we always start with the moving center, right? One, because it can be seen, right? And the second, because every pattern lies in the muscles. What was the second thing we just said?
It's connected.
Connected to all the other centers, right?
So does ATR exercise help in this case?
Yeah, very much. I'm just coming to that. Now, to observe the moving center, we're going to practice a small exercise every day. I'm going to sit on a table like this and cup our hands in our eyes and look at the darkness, right? And try to penetrate that darkness. At the same time, roll your attention through the body and relax your muscles for 5 minutes. Keep relaxing, relaxing, relaxing the muscles, letting go of tension in the muscles, and entering the darkness at the same time. Let us see if we can do it for a minute just now. So we just cup our hands, put our eyes into the darkness, look at the darkness, go deep into the darkness, and keep looking and relax the body at the same time. So you relax the 2 feet, the 2 calf muscles, the 2 knees, the thighs, the stomach, the back, the chest, the 2 shoulders, 2 hands, and all the small parts of the head. Keep relaxing and enter into the darkness. Right. Okay. Okay. Now, what will happen if we practice this small exercise every day? What will happen with our relation to the muscles of the body?
Over time, you train them to relax.
You will become so sensitive of the muscles that a little tension accumulating somewhere, right, you'll become aware of it and you'll relax it immediately. Can you get it? Right? What is that tension? Kinetic electricity is becoming static electricity. They call it kinetic electricity. Or moving, it's kinetic energy actually, but I don't know, I've just used the word here. It's becoming static electricity, right? And that is giving tension. And as you release the muscles, that you're not allowing a pattern to be built up. Pattern is karma. Can you understand? Pattern is karma. If there's no pattern, there's no karma. Right? Because it is that pattern which wants to repeat. And that is the seed of karma, the seed of repetition. Right? So very simple exercise, very, very simple. Now, she insults me, my muscles contract, but I have become sensitive to the muscles, I relax the contraction, I don't allow myself to hold that insult within me, because for that the muscles have to contract and make a pattern. Okay? Am I coming across in this? I'm relaxing this, I'm not holding on to that insult. There is no like, no dislike, nothing, right? There may be a momentary dislike, the thought came, I am not thinking any thought. Okay? So just by working on the moving center, we can rise in the what you call state of consciousness. We may not have to work on the other centers. We are going to go through all. Can you get it? So just by working on the moving center, we can achieve that state of higher consciousness, right? Because everything is in the muscles of the body. Everything is in the muscles of the body. So all the sanskars which are covering the divine lie in the muscles of the body. The muscles form electromagnetic fields, and those fields keep on damaging the bigger field of the body. Bigger field of the body. Right. Okay. Now we'll start with the lowest part of the moving center, and that is the jack. That is the jack. Now one question which no one asked, so I'll ask, right? So we took the ace, king, queen, jack. Ace is the whole center, right? King is the intellectual part, queen is the emotional part, and jack is the mechanical part. What about the other cards? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What about the other cards?
It tells you your state of consciousness in each center.
Now, we don't want to go into this just now, but I will touch upon it when I'm talking about it, because otherwise it will become too complicated. So, each third part of a center is again divided into 3 parts. So, if we have the jack of spades, which will be the 3 parts of the jack of spades? Yeah, that is, but in the cards. in the cards?
2, 3,
4. 2, 3, 4. Right? 2, 3, 4. Right? So in the jack again we left 3 levels, 2, 3, 4. Right? So now let's just study the jack today. Let's see how we go from there. This is the place where all memory of movements lie. All memory of. So in all the jacks, the intellectual center, the jack is again the storage of memory. The emotional center, the jack is again the storage of memory. Right? So all memory lies in the jacks.
Just to clarify something. So when you're doing the rhythmic breathing, right, you are 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, but those numbers do not correspond to
No.
these things. That is
That
completely
is something
separate.
totally different.
Okay.
That is on the movement of prana.
Okay.
Yeah, that is something totally
Okay.
different. Right?
Got it. Thanks.
Okay. Which is the simplest movement we've learned?
breathing.
No. In the moving center. Come on, everyone. I mean, you know it when you started learning to ride a bicycle. Right? Now, the memory of riding a bicycle is stored in the moving center, in the jack. Right? It is the mechanical part of the moving center. Right? And how do you know its memory? How do you know its memory? Say you haven't ridden a bicycle for 20 years, but if somebody gives you a bicycle, you'll be able to ride it immediately. So the memory of movements is stored in the jack of spades. The memory of movements is jack of spades. So all movements, whether we learn to walk, whether to ride a bicycle, to swim, etc., type on the keyboard, right? All those movements are stored in the jack. And even after years, we can bring back those memories. Now, why is this center so important in today's world? Why is this center so important in today's world?
Because we've sort of decreased our movement, right? Physical activity has gone down quite a bit, right? We're sitting on computers most of the time and
Yeah. Now, why is it so important? Why is it so appreciated in today's world?
Physical fitness, sports.
Because once you have learned the movements on the keyboard, those keyboard movements, they become faster than thought. Can you understand what I'm trying to say? So if there's a person who, it is the age of computers, right? So we want a person who can program even faster than thought, and his movements on the keyboard are working even faster than thought. So usually thinking is faster than moving. But when we practice something so many times, moving becomes faster than thinking, and that is because of the jack of spades, because the memory is so, what you call, ingrained over there that it becomes automatic. It becomes automatic. Can you see? And you see this in sportsmen also, right? But in today's world, it is mainly appreciated for those who can program at a very fast rate or work on the computer at a very fast rate. So, supposing I'm typing out these notes, I have to pay attention to what I'm typing, whether I'm typing the real thing or not. But my fingers are working automatically. And that is the, what you call, the mechanical part of the moving center. Right? You don't have to pay attention.
So when you continuously practice this 3 SRV the whole day, so that becomes this part, that it becomes so your memory is so strong that you're constantly doing this without even realizing,
Yeah.
or
Now we'll just do, I'll just, right? You're close to it, but there's a difference between a mechanical habit and a conscious habit, right? So I have a whole excuse me, I have a whole library of mechanical habits which are lying in the jack of spades. But now I'm practicing three-step rhythmic breathing. It cannot become a mechanical habit. Can you understand? I also, what you call, work on the computer and I breathe with the music. But still that little bit of attention I have to give to the music. It cannot become a complete mechanical habit. I don't know if you're coming across, right? So in this thing, in spiritual language, we call it as a spontaneous habit. It is nearly mechanical, but it is still not mechanical, right? But if you will see, as you practice this, and you keep the music on at night, right? And you suddenly, you just wake up a little in the night, you'll realize you're already breathing with the music even though you're not aware of it, right? So it is in that space where it is a habit, but it is not a completely mechanical habit, right? So on the spiritual path, we replace mechanical habit with conscious habits. Now, how do we know this is happening mechanically? Some movements are happening mechanically. We don't have to pay attention, but some examples.
you don't even realize it, like moving my leg constantly.
Supposing I've come out of a movie theater, right, and I'm driving home. So I can be thinking of the movie and driving at the same time. So you see that the habit has gone into the jack of spades, right? And you see today many people, they are texting on their phone and driving at the same time, right? So in the old days, of course, there's a lot of what do you call talk of drunken driving and all that. But if you really see, so many people after having so many drinks, they reach their home. Can you understand what I'm trying to say? I'm not saying that you, what do you call, it's just to say how the memory of movement is, it can happen with hardly any attention. So that is the jack of spades. You don't have to pay attention to those movements. Now, another place, especially for husbands, right, is the wife tells the husband that you bring this from the market, right? And he goes to the market, does something and come back, and when he comes back, he's forgotten what is, right? The wife had told him to bring, and this happens, right? But that does not mean he did not pass that stall. Supposing she had said, you bring mangoes, he must have passed that in the supermarket, the mango stall 3-4 times, right? But there was no attention, zero attention over there. Now most of these functions when they're in the jack, we don't want to interfere with them. So if we are driving the car, we don't want to drive the car with three-step rhythmic breathing. We don't want to drive the car with awareness. Can you get what I'm trying to say? Let them happen on their own. These are not functions where we want to bring in self-consciousness, because they perform efficiently in the way they are. Now, supposing you wanted to hire someone for your job, and the job is, a very dull job, taking something from this column and putting it into this column and putting it in just a routine, this thing, then what kind of person will you look for? What kind of person will you? A person who is centered in the jack of spades. A person who is centered in the jack of spades. So many times in the day we are in the jack of spades, jack of spades. Many times we are watching TV and drinking at the same time. So the drinking is happening with the jack of spades, right? Now, how do we know a person is centered in the jack of spades? How do we know that a person? So, in an emergency, he will always relate to moving, what do you call, moving functions. Can you get it? Now, supposing the husband and wife have had a fight, right? And then the husband goes to office. Then if the wife is in the jack of spades, she will immediately relate to moving functions. She'll take out everything from the cupboard and rearrange it over there. Can you see? Or the kitchen platform has already been cleaned, but she'll again take the sponge and clean the, what do you call, kitchen platform, right? So she will immediately find relief in moving functions. And these people are more, what do you call, centered in the jack of spades. Now, a person whose jack of spades is very weak, not centered over there, he will find a kind of frustration. Supposing somebody tells me to clean my room, I'll do it, but I'll feel a kind of frustration in arranging the things in the room, and that is why my jack of spades is a very weak part of my being. Can you understand? So these people who are in the jack of spades, they like to perform the same routine every day, the same functions every day, and if you take them out of their routine, they feel lost in life. Now I'll just touch upon, what did we see? There are 3 cards in this jack of spades, 2, 3, 4. So 2 definitely means the most automatic reflex functions. That is, they become repetitive through practice or adaptation. And for this we have to study our body habits and body gestures, because so many gestures, so many habits are so automatic, we are totally unaware of them, right? Or unaware of them. And we do these things when we are driving, having a bath, arranging things. Everything just goes according to momentum. Who studies these gestures? These automatic gestures, who studies them?
Lie detectors.
Huh? No. In normal life, supposing I have so many automatic gestures which I am not aware of, they are all in the jack of spades, right? And they come to the lowest level, number 2. We saw 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Yes, in a card game. In a card game. Right? The very famous example is, I don't know if you've heard of it, where Agassi beat Bjorn Borg in the Wimbledon final. Not Bjorn Borg, he beat Becker in the Wimbledon final. And he saw that before Becker would have a certain kind of serve, he would do something like this on his face, and then he would give that special corner serve of his. And Becker was shocked that that serve did not work in this game, because this fellow had studied his videos and he saw that this. So the card games and things like this, these are automatic gestures. So 2, then again we have the card 3 in the moving center, and here all imitation comes in. And this card we see very active in children. They imitate movements, right? I remember when my son was very young, very, very young, right? And my wife's mother was calling my wife's elder brother. So his name is Bharat, right? So he's saying, Bharto ayao, Bharto ayao, you know, and, right? And suddenly my son, who is about 2 years old or 2.5 years old, hey, Bharto ayao, Bharto ayao, can you? Right? So this is in this, there is a little bit of attention where we imitate the other person. And we see this in many, actors and show artists, they have a very good way of imitating this thing. So Jack of Spades is powerful, but in the Jack of Spades, the 3 is more powerful than 2 and 4. Now, where we are totally mechanical and a little bit of attention is needed. So from 2 we move to 3. From 2 we move to 3. Say we've gone for a walk. Where in the walk do we move from 2 to 3? We are walking totally mechanically, right? But suddenly there's a big stone in the way. So we become a little aware of the stone. From the 2 of spades we have moved to the 3 of spades. Can you see? That little attention comes in. There is a change in momentum. Where there is a change in momentum. And the card 4, so in the Jack we have 2, 3, 4. The card 4, I don't know, here in America you all don't go in a bus or anything, right? But say if you're in Mumbai and you climb a local train, now there is no space in the local train. So you have to move in a way in which you make space and find balance, right? So this, in the card 4, it is still the moving center, it is still the Jack of Spades, but you have to find a balance, you have to find your way. So the mind is automatically making certain basic calculations which we are not even aware of, and we are finding our way, and in that crowded train we are able to stand and sort of, this much area belongs to me, and sort of hold our space over there.
So does that have like an element of creativity, or is it still pretty mechanical?
A little bit of creativity,
Okay.
a little bit of balance, but it has a little more attention than 2 and 3. 2 and 3.
Overtaking on a
Crossing the road. Crossing the road, overtaking. And you see some people in Mumbai, they don't cross the road when there's no traffic. They cross the road when there is full traffic. Right? And so this card is very powerful in them. Ford. This car will go, then they'll go this way, and then they'll stand here, right? And they'll cross the road, right? So this card is very powerful in those people. In tracking, where we go? Tracking, right? And where there's no road and we have to find our way, right? So that is the Jack of Spades. You want to take one more or?
So,
Yeah.
so if I take if I want to be very adventurous, I'm climbing on the mountain, I suddenly want to do a dive. So here it falls into this.
I didn't get it, sir.
So let's say I want to do crazy stuff. I'm on the bridge and I want to fall.
Right.
And I'm going to do it. So does it go into this?
No. That doesn't.
That is
go.
crazy, okay.
That will come. Where we do adventure sports, it will come. It will come in another card.
Okay.
Right? Adventure sports will come in another card. Right? But here is that you're climbing the mountain and you're climbing in your daydreaming, but there's a stone in between, then you have to change your momentum. Right? But you're climbing and now there's no space, there are 2 rocks this way and you have to find your way between those 2 rocks, then you go to a little higher card. Okay. But these are all functions of the Jack of Spades. Jack of Spades. Yeah.
So what is all these sports or like karate, taekwondo, these mechanical?
Yeah. They become they become habits which are faster than thought.
So
They
that is the 4?
It will come in the queen.
Queen. Okay.
Because there will be love of sport.
I see.
There will be love of sport, the queen of spades. Because the emotional part is there.
Okay.
Can you get it?
Yeah.
There will be love of sports over there. So one of the basic things in a queen is attention is always attracted somewhere. Attention is always held by something. This is the basic quality of the queen. Now in this, the queen of spades, attention is held by movement. Attention is held by movement. Now in all the suits, the queens are the most unstable cards. Extremes. These are people who live life in the extremes, right? All the jacks are very stable cards, right? We saw the jack of spades. He repeats the same functions every day and does not want to get out of his routine. They are very stable cards. So in the queen there is an attraction to a particular function, and mainly attraction to sport. Now that does not mean I play the sport. I may be attracted to the sport without playing the sport, but still the queen, right? And I will go to an extreme. If my team loses, I may go mad or something, or start crying or whatever, right? So there is that, the queen is always in these extremes. So there is experience of movement when we play the sport, and there is watching of movement when we don't play the sport. In both we are attracted to movement. We enjoy movement. So we enjoy watching a cricket match. Then we are in the queen of spades. The jack is a very disciplined card, jack of spades, right? Because he's following the same discipline every day. The queen, after some time, she may lose interest. She may do sports for some time, but after some time, because she's an extreme card, she doesn't have any interest. She'll drop it completely. Now in the queen there is a great attraction for taking risks. Great attraction for taking risks. They love dangerous sports, right? Jumping off cliffs, and many times they land up in hospital with broken bones and all that. They love to go dancing. They love to dance, the queen. Now, we go to a dance club and we are dancing, right? And we are enjoying the dancing. So we are in which card? Queen of spades. But the disc jockey is which card?
King of spades.
King of spades, because he is deciding whether a fast moving tempo, slow moving tempo, what is the mood, what is the atmosphere. So he has to use some attention to decide which movement he wants to bring, whether he wants to increase the tempo, speed, bring it down, all that. So the disc jockey is the one who goes into the king of, or you can say he's not in the king of spades, he's in the intellectual part of the queen of spades. Both ways we can look at it. They love sports, so the queen loves sports, video games, roller coaster rides, fast cars, etc. It all comes in the queen of spades.
So the queen is, the queen is motivated by excitement,
Motivated by love of movement.
which brings her excitement.
Brings her excitement. So she is motivated by excitement.
Okay.
Right. But that excitement is expressed in the love of movement. Love of movement. And this part usually expresses itself when we are of younger age, right? As we grow old and mature, this we sort of, this part doesn't express itself so much in doing as in watching. Now, in certain people, you will see a lot of unnecessary movement, right? So when they're talking with too many movements, right? So they are in the queen, but the mechanical part of the queen, right? Too many gestures they use. Then again, they are in the mechanical part of the queen. Many people, they love drama, right? So they love drama, and they, in life, they start speaking in a way as if they are acting in a drama and thing. Again, this is the queen of spades. They'll pronounce the words in a certain way, right? Now, because the queen, you will see that these people are usually very hasty people, right? They can't sit for a second because of all the unnecessary movement, right? They are always in a haste to do something. But queens are always subject to the law of extremes, the law of the pendulum. So they may follow something with great interest and enjoy it so much, and then after a few months just drop it and never touch it again. They've swung to the other extreme. Where we can see this is that, they are hasty in very simple situations, very, very simple situations, right? You want to relax and have a cup of tea, but before your cup of tea is over, they'll come, should I pour in a little more? In simple situations, they are very hasty people, right? So there is in all queens we will see later on that there is a swing from intense involvement to intense disinterest, right? And this we see in many people's lives. So for a few months I may pursue dancing, right? And for those few months, the most important thing in my life is dancing. And then one day I just give it up and never go back to it again. These people have a lot of mood swings, So they'll go out dancing, they'll dance the whole night, and then they'll come back home and they'll curse their body because it is paining in all the places, right? And they'll again say that, I'll never go for dancing again. And again, after one day, they'll go dancing again. And this is swinging thing of the queen. These are people who love to travel. They love to travel, right? And many of them, you'll see, they've seen quite a bit of the world. They've enjoyed quite a bit of the world. But they don't want a boring travel. They want excitement travel, right? So they won't go in a guided tour where everything is boring and mechanical. They'll go on their own and find their own way and things like that. They do not like anything which is boring and repetitive. We saw in the Jack, he does everything which is boring and repetitive. So if you see these people, they will go traveling, but they won't stay in the top resorts and things like that. They will, find ways where you're backpacking and things like that. Live off the ground. So they will avoid all jobs which are boring and repetitive. After 3 months of doing this is too boring for me. So he's now stuck in the queen over here. Many people love to travel in poor countries where the currency is strong. So the dollar brings 80 rupees, then traveling in India is cheap. So these are these people who are in the queen. So the quality of the queen is the attention is always held by some activity, some moving activity, right? River rafting, climbing a mountain, right? Running, active sports. And later on in life it could be some more passive thing, but still it is an activity. You'll see right into their old age, many people are still using the sewing machine, right? And they're stitching and sewing and things, right? So they always need some movement, some movement. Now, this is one center, the moving center, which is the cause of many bad habits. The cause of many bad habits. And the cause of many bad habits is that we don't use the energy of the moving center. Now, supposing I work in an office and I've done intellectual work the whole day. So I've used up all the energy in my intellectual center, but I have not used my moving center. Can you say I've been sitting at a table the whole day? So I come home and I watch TV. Now that energy which is in the moving center needs to be used. Can you understand? So I should have gone for a walk rather than what do you call watching TV. Now that energy will express itself in destructive ways. So it will either force me to smoke a cigarette or to take a couple of pegs of something. Can you understand what I'm trying to say? So but this accumulation of energy in the moving center, in the spades, what we call, that has to be every day. We must see that we use the energy of the moving center. Otherwise, it becomes stale and it will force us to take on wrong habits. Now, we see there are 3 cards in the queen, 5, 6 and 7. So in 5, I'm just tracking for the sake of tracking, the mechanical part, right? But in 6, I'm tracking and enjoying it at the same time. In 6, there's a little bit of creativity because again 6 being the emotional part, the queen. So I may be going tracking but I will bring harmony in my movements. I'll bring harmony in my movements. I may swing in a rhythm. So now in 7, right, because the card 7 being the intellectual part, I will bring a little creativity into my movements which will come from my own understanding. And this happens on the spiritual path. Initially we follow the teacher and his techniques of meditation and all that. But as we grow, we start inventing our own techniques, right? This is the 7th card. So we've taken Queen of Spades and Jack of Spades. Tomorrow we'll take the King of Spades and go ahead. Why do we want to study this? Because we want to observe our own selves and the workings of the ego we want to observe, and we are observing that. And as we observe, we separate consciousness, because I observing is self-consciousness, right? It tells us about ourselves, where we are in which card, right? And what card we need to move ahead, where we are lacking something, where we need to add something. And the third thing is that in our lives, there is a mix-up of centers. If I want to buy a stock tomorrow, right, I have to use the intellectual center. But she tells me, you buy this, it's going to double tomorrow. Then I'm following that, I'm using which center? The emotional center, the queen, she's gone, right? Can you understand? So in our lives, there is a lot of wrong work of centers, and we want to put that in place. So as we learn how to use these cards to observe ourselves, 3 things: we can rise in consciousness, right? Wrong working of centers, what do you call, stops, and we know where we are every moment of time, which part of, which suit I'm in, which card I am in, and where I have to go, right? So rather than what Raman Maharishi says, who am I, we know where am I, where am I, and that's very important away. right? I'll stop over here. Any questions you can ask.
So if I take my example,
Right.
I see some people, they're beautiful at dance, they are graceful, everything. For me, that doesn't come so easily.
Right.
So you were born at a certain level in the centers, or?
Yes.
And
You
you
were
have.
born no, I won't say you were born, but as your personality grows around 5 years, right, you become more anchored in one center. You become more anchored in one center.
And even though you may be anchored in one center, it seems like having a balance of the centers would be a
Right.
good idea. Is
Right.
that correct?
So when you're doing something, you know which center you're doing it with.
Right,
Which
okay.
center you're doing it with.
There's a couple of online questions. First is from Nishant Agarwal. Second is also from him.
Huh? Austin.
There's actually two Nishant Agarwals. So one is there a connection here about queen being a female? Is there a connection here
Yeah, but
about queen being a
female
female?
not as in body. Everybody is male and female. In that sense, queen is female. It is feminine energy. Right?
There's one more Nishant Agarwal with a different symbol. He says, I struggle to wake up and do the exercises. Okay, it's the same from different accounts. Okay, it's the same Nishant Agarwal. I struggle to wake up and do the exercises early in the morning. Will you please talk about the impact of eating food while watching TV on the quality and quantity of sleep?
Quality and quantity of
Of sleep.
sleep.
Of sleep, yeah.
No, if you eat too much at night, right, it's going to create a problem. Right? So, you see, food is a very vast subject. It's very difficult to talk about food in the sense that supposing you're eating later in the evening, then where is that energy going? So we have 4 centers, right? So is the energy going to my intellectual center, right? Or is it going into a lower part of negative imagination? So whatever we eat at dinner time, usually it goes into making of excitement. And that is why it is better to avoid eating at night, right? So you can move from excitement to sensitivity, right? Now you eat at night, then you watch TV, again TV is excitement. I'm not saying don't watch TV, but at least put on the rhythmic breathing softly and watch TV, right? So TV becomes a practice, right? So, but if you are eating too much at night, then all that goes into making the energy of excitement, right? Then we are always what you call attracted to excitement, Stop over here, right? Okay. Tomorrow we are meeting at?
4:30.
I'm going very fast. I'm going very fast because I want to finish all the centers, just give you a kind of outline in these 5 days, right? So.